Yeah, when did you start working with Westinghouse?
Well, it probably was in the early 40s
Okay.
because I went into the service in 43. So I had 2 years there building torpedoes.
What did you do building torpedoes?
Well, it was just part of the motor or whatever. It was just a big round wreath-looking thing of copper that I put pieces in, and that was mine. Somebody else was wrapping tape around something else, communication, you know, for the. But
Okay.
We were in a department that was very secret. Of course, anybody that had a badge that was allowed to go through there, they could come in, but our badges said that's the only place we could be. And that's where our job was.
Why did you join the Navy?
Well, I had a foreman when I worked at Westinghouse that went into the service as a lieutenant, and when he came back home to visit, he would always come into the shop to meet all the girls that were building torpedoes. And he said, well, why don't some of you join the Navy or be a wave? And he said, oh, that's an idea. And so 2 of us joined.
Okay. So when you first went in, what did you do? Where did you go?
Well, I went up to New York City for my boot camp training, and it was a female college that the government took over for our boot camp. And we just marched our legs off. After you get up there, you think, what did I do this for?
Well, back to why you went in. Was your family military or spirited?
Well, they loved their country, and yes, I'm sure they were. But there wasn't, I can't think of anybody of my immediate family that was going in at that time. But I had 2 brothers that joined after me, and the one was in Leyte on his R&R. Do you know what that was?
Sure.
And there was a sniper up in a tree, probably a woods or something like this. My brother Tom's buddy was down at the end of the yard, and I don't know what he was doing, but they picked him off. And I think my brother was on a porch or something. What does he do? Runs down to help him. That wasn't the training he got, but you know, when you're on your R&R, you think you're kind of safe in a way. And so they got him.
Where did you start in the Navy? Where were you first assigned?
It was New York City, in the Bronx.
And from there you went where?
But Washington, D.C. is where they placed me. And I was in a training center for the Navy boys. And so that's where we were. And our barracks was over on the Potomac, right around Lincoln and Jefferson and the tidal basin, beautiful blossoms from Japan was over there. You know, now I wouldn't find my way around if I went down there. We had some leisure time of our getting acquainted with the other waves, you know, in our area. And
how long were you in the service?
2 years, and that was when you joined up or when you were drafted. You're in until you won the war or you didn't win it. It wasn't, I'll be in for 2 years and I'm going to get out.
For the duration.
That's exactly right. That was the word.
Yes.
You're in for the duration.
And so when you got out, what did you do?
Well, when I got out, I thought, well, better get a job somewhere. And so I said, well, there's a GI Bill. I'll use that. And so I went to cosmetology as a hairdresser.
Where and when did you meet your husband?
Well, he was in our town anyhow, So I knew him, and he came home as from the Army, and I think he made corporal. I was a seaman first class, you know, and so wasn't anybody else around, you know, so we got married.
That sounds like a very romantic,
Right.
very romantic story.
Well,
And he had been he'd been in the service. Where
well,
did
he was
serve?
put in right away when they started the draft for the soldiers, and I guess he wanted to. Well, Army is what they wanted anyhow, just for the start. Then they build up the others, corps.
Where did he serve?
He served in Virginia. We had a transfer band, if you believe that, in our little town, and he played the bass drum or bass horn.
Okay.
And so when he went down there, they had to have a band for marching the boys off to war, and so he stayed there the whole time, and that's where he was.
So he had a cushy job.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and but now you have basically the two of you have a military family. Is that correct?
That's right.
And tell me about that.
Got married and had our first son. We only had 2 boys, but our first son grew up learning about us being in the service, and he just wanted to go in, so he joined. And he was, yes, he was married before he joined in, but his wife agreed to let him go. He finally, after so many years, was sent to Korea.
Okay.
And then from Korea, he was sent to Iraq, where a lot of them was there. That was a heavy place. And he spent 4 years in there, I think, before he got back home.
Wow.
But thank the Lord he got back home.
Yeah.
He didn't make the sacrifice that a lot of them made. And then when his son, Nathan, was growing up, military was all he knew. And they were down in Alabama at Fort Rucker. That was the helicopter place.
Okay.
And so he wanted to go after, this was when he was in high school. And he said when he finished his junior year, he says, I'm going in and get my basics right now for the summer. Then when I am through with high school, I can go right in for the job or whatever. I have my basics taken care of. And so that's what he did. So he is 36, I think it is, or 37. And he would like to retire in 20 years. But he has climbed an officer's ranks to E, 8 or 9 or whatever it is.
NCO ranks. Yeah.
And then they have used him as a drill sergeant, and they have used him up at West Point to tell those young squirts that came in for training where the washing machine was, and they didn't know anything, you know, and so he barked at them being a drill sergeant. And then he was supposed to be there for 4 years. Well, his 4th year, they came and they said, well, Espy, you're going to Iraq. He says, oh, no, I've got another year yet. Oh, no, you don't. You're in the military. You do as we say. Something like that. And so away he went to Iraq. No, he went to Bosnia first, and then he went to Iraq.
Okay.
But he's been around quite a bit.
So is he retired now?
No, they sent him to this leadership training over in El Paso for a year. And so they're going to hang on to him for at least 4 years. They're not going to give him that training without using him, you know. And so he's back in Alabama, close to where his father and mother are. I said, well, that's good. You've been away from your family. He has 2 children and never sees them, you know. He's up early in the morning and late at night. And so I said, at least you're getting back to family. Mm-hmm. But he still has a job at Fort Rucker. And we went to Germany to see him because Merrill was going over there for a musical training of some kind for like 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. Well, they needed a bass singer down in Regensburg. And the officer that took him over there, teacher, said, Merrill, do you want to go over there and try out or something? She said, I'll have to talk to my wife. And so he went to Regensburg. And they took him like that. So that meant he was there for another year. Mm-hmm. And so when the grandchild came along, we had to, that was the first one, you know. We had to go over there and see that.
Well, I would think that's appropriate.
Well, but he's hoping to get down in D.C. among the rest of them, you know, because they do have military down there for him. And so he said, when I serve here in Fort Rucker, Alabama, then if I don't retire, that will be my next, because his wife works in D.C. for the wounded soldiers coming back. And she's so patient, she's one that should be doing that. And so maybe he'll get to his family again.
Well, that sounds great. So you really have had quite a few members of your family.
Yes.
Quite a few years when you count yours, your husband's, your son, grandson. And
granddaughter.
And granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk about your granddaughter yet?
No, she was in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She was only in, I don't know if she was in 2 years or not. I have been honored. Well, St. Paul's had 4 different celebrations for the veterans. And I said, I took my uniform and put it in mothballs and took it with me everywhere I went. And I don't know why, because I wore it. So I had that on 4 times this year. And no more.
Well, thank you very much for talking with me today, too.
It's been my pleasure.
Okay.